Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to talk about something kind of worrying, actually. It's a crisis that's happening in classrooms everywhere, and it affects almost every single one of us. It's all about creativity. And the numbers, well, they're staggering. Let's just jump right in.
So, get this. According to a landmark study on creativity, 98% is the potential for creative genius in your average 5-year-old. Almost every single one of them is just buzzing with imagination and brand new ideas. But then, something happens.
Because by the time we're adults, that incredible number, it just plummets, all the way down to just 2%. Think about that, from 98% to 2. That's not just a drop, it's a total collapse. And this is what a lot of people are calling the creativity crisis.
And look, this isn't just an "oh, that's a shame" kind of thing. It's a massive problem. In the world we live in now, which is getting more complex by the day, leaders are waking up to the fact that we need more creative minds, not fewer, if we're going to solve our biggest problems.
But hey, don't just take my word for it. Back in 2010, IBM did this huge global study. They talked to 1,500 CEOs from over 60 countries, and they asked them, what's the single most important thing a leader needs to handle a future? And you know what they said? It wasn't discipline, it wasn't even vision, it was creativity. Okay, so if creativity is that important, how do we get it back? How do we nurture it? Well, the answer everyone's pointing to is something called creative education. And let's be super clear here. We're not just talking about adding more art classes or, pottery. This is a complete shift in how we think about learning itself. What's really key here is the focus on process. Creative education isn't about memorizing a fact and spitting it back out to get the one right answer. Nope. It's all about developing something called divergent thinking, which is just a fancy way of saying the ability to come up with lots of different, unique solutions to a single problem.
And you know what? The results are in, and they are pretty amazing. When creativity is woven into the classroom, learning becomes way more engaging, student achievement actually goes up, and even those subjects that kids usually dread, like math and science, suddenly become more interesting. Basically, it builds students who are ready to tackle anything.
Okay, this all sounds perfect, right? But here's where the story gets really interesting. It turns out there's this giant gap, a huge disconnect, between the idea of creative teaching and what's actually going on inside the four walls of a classroom.
So what does happen when you stop talking theory and actually peek inside a real classroom? Well, let's look at this incredible case study of English teachers in Bali. It gives us a perfect snapshot of this creativity gap. So the researchers did something really smart here. First, they had these 12 English teachers fill out a super detailed questionnaire, basically rating themselves on how creative they thought their teaching was. Then, and this is the key part, the researchers went into those exact same classrooms and watched them teach using the exact same checklist.
And wow, the results were, well, see for yourself. On the left, that's what the teachers thought they were doing. They gave themselves a 3.84 out of 5, which they labeled as creative. Pretty good, right? But then, look at the right. That's what the observers actually saw, a score of just 1.85. The category? Slightly creative. That's not just a gap, that's a canyon.
So what does slightly creative even mean? Well, this quote from one of the teachers says it all. You can hear the process, right? I will explain the formula, then they will make the sentences. One material will be finished in one meeting. It's all about the teacher delivering information. It's efficient, for sure. You can get through the textbook. But where's the room for the student to explore or try something new? And what's even more fascinating is why some teachers do this. Listen to this other quote. The teacher basically says that the students miss being lectured to. There's this belief that if you don't just stand up there and explain everything directly, the kids will get lost or lazy. And, that can become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay, so if we're going to fix this, if we want to bridge that gap, we first need to know what we're even aiming for. What does creativity in a classroom actually look like? The Bali study used a really helpful framework from a researcher named Margaret Bowden that breaks it all down. Bowden breaks creativity down into 3 types. First up is exploratory. This is like you take a concept everyone knows, say a fairy tale, and you have the students write a totally new ending. Simple, right? Then you have transformational. This is where you actually change the rules of the game. So instead of writing an essay about history, students have to design and build a museum exhibit. Way different. And finally, you've got combinational. This is where you smash 2 different ideas together to make something new, like using the principles of music to analyze a poem. It gives us a really clear target to shoot for. All right, so how do we actually do this?
How do we get more of that exploratory and transformational thinking into the classroom? Knowing the problem is one thing, but having a solution is another. Thankfully, education experts have put together a kind of creative teaching toolkit. Let's open it up.
And they keep it really simple, breaking it down into 3 phases: what you do before the lesson, what you do during the lesson, and what you do after the lesson. Super manageable, right?
Okay, phase 1, planning. This is all your prep work. Don't just have a vague idea, actually write out a detailed scenario for the lesson. Then, and this is huge, show it to another teacher and get some feedback. Make sure your tasks get students working together, not just alone at their desks. And here's a pro tip. Try doing the creative assignment yourself first. It'll show you exactly where students might get stuck.
All right, phase 2, performance. This is when you're actually in the classroom, and your role completely changes. You're not a lecturer anymore, you're a facilitator. Your main job is to give students the time and space to think and express themselves. Don't just hand them the answers. Let them struggle a little. Encourage them to take some risks. And hey, you can model that by taking some risks yourself. And probably the most important thing, be flexible. If the class gets excited about something you didn't plan, be willing to toss your plan and go with it.
And last but not least, phase 3, reflection. This is honestly where the magic happens for the teacher. After the lesson is over, you have to sit down and ask yourself the tough questions. Did my plan actually work? Did the students come up with anything truly original? What could I do differently to get better ideas out of the next time? It's this constant cycle of trying, reflecting, and improving.
At the end of the day, creating a classroom like this isn't about finding some secret technique or a magic worksheet. It's really about a shift in mindset. It's about seeing it as a mission to nurture that curiosity and wild imagination that every single kid is born with. And really, this whole conversation forces us to ask a pretty fundamental question about school itself. What is it for? Is it supposed to be a factory for facts, just pumping out students with standardized knowledge? Or could it be something more, like a studio for ideas, a place for invention and creation?
That really is the heart of the matter, isn't it? The big goal here is to move away from standardizing how everyone thinks about a problem and instead start encouraging and celebrating lots of different, original, and sometimes messy responses.
So that leaves us with the big, powerful question that the late, great Sir Ken Robinson famously asked. Are our schools actively killing creativity? And if they are, what can we do to redesign them, to rebuild them, to finally bring that creativity roaring back to life?